Hi, my name is Michael Arias, aka Cal Track Dad. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I explore collegiate track life from a parent's perspective. This is my second video for this channel. In my first video, I talked about my son Aiden, who was a freshman walk-on to the UC Berkeley track team. I also briefly touched on college track recruiting in general and a bit about my son's experiences with that process from a high level. I'm making this particular video during winter 2026, right in the midst of indoor track season. Now, if you're like me, I only became vaguely aware of indoor track just a few years ago in a passing conversation. I pretty much grew up in sunny California, and I simply assumed that an indoor track was similar to an outdoor track. That is a racetrack that is 400 meters in size, but just indoors inside a stadium or something similar. But as it turns out, to my surprise, that indoor track is something completely different. So if you aren't as familiar with indoor track like I was, you may be asking yourself, how is indoor track different from outdoor track? Now, first off, college track has two distinct seasons and two types of track venues. There's the indoor track season, which is during winter and goes into spring. Of course, depending on Groundhog's Day and if the groundhog sees his own shadow or not. And as you may already know, there is the outdoor track season, which starts in spring and goes into summer. Track venues are also completely different. An outdoor track is 400 meters in the shape of a standard oval with long straights, wide turns, and is flat. Of course, since it's outside, the wind, weather, and sun can all factor in and affect race results. Here's a screenshot of Hayward Field, the outdoor track stadium at the University of Oregon. Now, an indoor track is 200 meters. It's a 200-meter oval with shorter straights, tighter turns, which are often banked, and with a 60-meter straight track in the middle of the oval. Since the track is indoors, races are not affected by the outside wind, weather, and sun like it can at outdoor meets. Here's a photo of an indoor track facility in Reno, Nevada, where my son competed in his first indoor race. As you can see, it is much smaller and more compact as compared to an outdoor track and field venue. Indoor running events tend to be slightly different as well. While the distances and types can vary from meet to meet, there are a certain set of running and field events at the NCAA Division I championships at the time this video was released during the winter 2026. So for example, instead of a 100-meter race, there's a shorter 60-meter dash. For the hurdle, both men and women run the same distance of 60 meters instead of 110 for men and 100 meters for women. The hurdle heights do vary between men and women and are similar to outdoor hurdle heights. For the championships, there are also individual races at the 200-meter, 400-meter, and 800-meter. In the distance races, there is a bit of difference as there is a mile race for indoor track as opposed to a 1,500-meter one. And other distance races include the 3K and 5K. For the relays, there is a 4x400-meter relay where each leg runs twice around the 200-meter track and a DMR or distance medley relay. For the NCAA championships, the DMR consists of 4 legs of varying distances totaling 4,000 meters. The relay kicks off with 1,200 meters for the first leg, then 400 meters, followed by 800 meters, and finally the anchor leg is 1,600 meters. For the indoor field events at the NCAA championships, there are the shot put, the weight throw, which is similar to the hammer throw, but it's bulkier, heavier, and with a shorter cable, the pole vault, the long jump, and the triple jump. Now, if you're interested, here's the QR code for more information about the 2026 NCAA D1 Track Championships, which goes to the NCAA website. Now, I actually attended my first indoor track meet earlier in the 2025-26 season to watch my son run in the 60-meter dash for his first time competing at an indoor track meet. He did relatively well, winning his heat and advancing to the 60-meter finals. As you can imagine, indoor track races tend to be tighter, faster, and feel more compressed. This particular indoor track meet was in Reno, Nevada at the Silver State Invitational where my son was running unattached. So he and a bunch of his track teammates made the 4-hour trek by car from Berkeley to Reno. They all then crammed into one of his teammates' dad's friend's house, who also happened to be a Cal alumni that lives up in Reno as well. I actually met the guy later at the track meet, and it turns out we were both at Cal around the same time and had actually taken classes with the same professor, Dr. Harry Edwards, who taught the sociology of sport. That was actually one of my favorite courses at UC Berkeley, and I distinctly remember back in the day that Dr. Harry Edwards advocated for college athletes to be paid long before the NCAA allowed college athletes to make money. But that's another story for another time. Okay, so I decided to take a 6-hour bus ride from Oakland to Reno rather than drive my car. Whew, big mistake. Anyway, my wife couldn't make it since she works on Saturdays when the meet was being held. While my son did drive up with his friends, he and I actually stayed with one of my wife's cousins who also lives by in Reno. Shout out to Beth and Nate for their hospitality. Now, after the last race of the meet was over, my son and his teammates drove back down to the Bay Area. I stayed overnight and then caught the bus in the morning for the 6-hour ride back to Oakland. So basically, I traveled more than 12 hours round trip crammed in a stuffy and smelly bus to watch my son run in a less than 7-second race. Of course, it was well worth it, and I would do it over again and again just to watch him run if I could. Unfortunately, I didn't make it the trip to his next indoor meet, which was up in Spokane, Washington, as it was much further away, and it would have been much more expensive for me to travel. But we were all really happy with his performance in the 60-meter, where he took second place overall, set a new personal record, and his race time actually moved him up into a tie for 10th place of all time in Cal history for the indoor 60-meter dash. Now, if you learned something new about indoor track and got some value out of this video, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Well, that's it for now. I'm Cal Track Dad. Thanks for watching, and go Bears!